I am sorry, but we cannot serve you tonight.
What do you mean you cannot serve me?
Restaurant refused to serve black woman. Next month, it closed down. The evening rain had just stopped when Maya Thompson pushed open the heavy glass door of the Golden Fork restaurant. The smell of grilled steak and fresh bread filled her nose. She had been walking past this place for 3 years on her way home from the hospital where she worked as a nurse. Tonight was special. After working double shifts for 6 months straight, she had finally gotten a promotion to head nurse. She wanted to celebrate with a nice dinner, something she rarely allowed herself. The restaurant looked beautiful inside. Crystal lights hung from the ceiling like frozen stars. White tablecloths covered every table. Soft piano music played in the background. Maya noticed how other customers were dressed in expensive clothes and jewelry. She looked down at her simple black dress and touched the small pearl necklace her grandmother had given her before she died. It was not fancy, but it meant everything to her. She walked to the host stand with her head held high. A young woman with blonde hair looked up from her reservation book. Her smile disappeared when she saw Maya. The hostess quickly looked away and pretended to be busy with papers. Maya stood there for 5 minutes, then 10 minutes. Other people came in after her. The hostess greeted them warmly and showed them to tables right away. A white couple in jeans got seated immediately. An older white man alone got a table by the window. Maya's feet started to hurt in her new shoes, but she kept standing there politely. Finally, she cleared her throat. "Excuse me," she said softly. "I would like a table for one, please." The hostess did not look up. She kept writing something that looked like nothing important. Maya tried again, a little louder this time. "Miss, I have been waiting for 15 minutes." The hostess finally looked up with cold eyes. "We are fully booked tonight," she said. Her voice was flat, like she was reading from a script. Maya looked around the restaurant. She counted at least 8 empty tables. Some still had reserved signs on them, but she had heard the hostess tell the couple in jeans that they did not need a reservation tonight. "I can see empty tables," Maya said calmly. "I just want to have dinner. I am happy to sit anywhere." The hostess's face turned red. She opened her mouth to speak, but then a man in a dark suit appeared from the back office. Marcus Webb had been the manager of the Golden Fork for 5 years. He was proud of what he called the restaurant's exclusive atmosphere. He had grown up believing certain things his father had taught him, ugly things about who belonged where. When he saw Maya standing at the host stand, his jaw tightened. He walked over with quick, hard steps. His shoes clicked on the marble floor like a countdown clock. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, but he was not looking at Maya. He was looking at his hostess like he was checking if she had followed some unspoken rule. Maya turned to face him. Even though her heart was beating fast, she kept her voice steady. "Good evening. I would like a table for dinner. I have been waiting, but your hostess says you are fully booked. I can see that is not true." Marcus Webb did not even pretend to check the reservation book. He did not look at the empty tables. He looked Maya straight in the eyes and said the words that would change everything. "We don't serve you here." The words hung in the air like poison. Every sound in the restaurant seemed to stop. Even the piano music seemed to pause. Maya felt like someone had poured ice water down her back. For a heartbeat, she could not speak. She had faced racism before, small cuts that hurt but healed. This was different. This was a sword through her dignity. "Excuse me," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Marcus Webb crossed his arms. "You heard me. This is a private establishment. We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. Please leave before I call security." His voice was loud enough now that people at nearby tables were starting to look over. Behind Maya, a young man named David Chen had been waiting to be seated with his girlfriend. He was a second-year law student who worked part-time as a photographer for the local newspaper. When he heard what the manager said, he could not believe his ears. Without thinking, he pulled out his phone and started recording. His girlfriend, Sarah, grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" she whispered. David shook his head. "This is wrong. People need to see this." He kept his phone steady, making sure to capture both Maya and the manager in the frame. Maya stood straighter. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. Baby, when they go low, you stand tall. Dignity is your crown that no one can take away. She looked at Marcus Webb without blinking. I want to be very clear about what is happening here. You are refusing to serve me because I am black. Is that correct? Marcus Webb's face turned purple. He had not expected her to say it out loud. I do not have to explain myself to you. Leave now, or I will have you removed. More phones came out around the restaurant. A table of college students started recording. An older woman was typing furiously on her phone, probably posting on social media already. Maya noticed the phones but kept her eyes on the manager. I am a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital, she said, her voice growing stronger. Last month, I helped save the life of a man who had a heart attack. I did not ask what color he was before I performed CPR. 2 weeks ago, I held the hand of a dying woman who had no family. I did not check if she looked like me before I comforted her. And tonight, I just wanted to celebrate my promotion with a nice dinner. But you cannot see past the color of my skin. The manager's face was sweating now. He could feel the phones recording him. He could see his regular customers looking uncomfortable. But his pride was stronger than his sense. "Security!" he shouted. 2 large men in black shirts appeared from near the kitchen. They looked confused when they saw it was just one woman standing quietly. "Escort this woman out," Marcus Webb ordered. The security guards looked at each other. One of them, a black man named Jerome, had worked there for 2 years. He had sent his daughter to college with this job. But he could not do this. "I am leaving," Maya said before the security guards had to make a choice. "But know this. You have not won anything tonight. You have only shown everyone who you really are." She turned and walked toward the door with the grace of a queen. As she passed David Chen, he gave her a nod of respect. As she passed the table of college students, one of them stood up and started clapping. Then another. Then another. By the time Maya reached the door, half the restaurant was applauding her. Marcus Webb stood frozen in rage and embarrassment. "Sit down," he shouted at the clapping customers. "All of you sit down or leave." The clapping stopped, but the damage was done. People were already getting up, asking for their checks, some leaving money on tables and walking out without waiting. The hostess was crying, whether from shame or fear for her job, no one could tell. In the kitchen, the staff had heard everything through the service window. The head chef, a Mexican immigrant named Carlos, took off his apron. He had faced discrimination too. He could not cook another meal for this place. Outside in the parking lot, Maya sat in her car with shaking hands. The adrenaline was wearing off and the hurt was setting in. She wanted to cry but would not give them that victory. Her phone buzzed, then buzzed again and again. She looked at it confused. Her social media was exploding with notifications. Someone had tagged her in a video that already had 5,000 views. The title read, "Restaurant Refused to Serve Black Woman. Manager's Shocking Words Caught on Camera." David Chen had posted the video immediately, and it was spreading like wildfire. Within an hour, it had 50,000 views. By midnight, it hit 1 million. The comments section was a storm of outrage. People were identifying the restaurant, finding its social media pages, leaving reviews. Someone started a hashtag, "Serve Everyone." Local news stations were calling David for the footage. Maya's phone would not stop ringing, but she did not answer. She just drove home and sat on her couch with her cat, Princess, trying to process what had happened. The next morning, Maya woke up to find news vans outside her apartment building. Her neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, knocked on her door with coffee and fresh pastries. "I saw the video, honey," the older woman said, hugging Maya tight. "The whole world has seen it now. You were so brave." Maya did not feel brave. She felt tired. But when she finally looked at her phone, she saw something that made her cry for the first time. Thousands of messages of support. People sharing their own stories. A movement growing from her pain. At the Golden Fork, Marcus Webb arrived to find protesters outside. They were peaceful but loud. Signs read, "Racism is not on the menu," and "Human dignity is not negotiable." He pushed past them and locked himself in his office. His phone was ringing non-stop. The restaurant's owner, Mr. Fitzgerald, was calling from his home in Florida. "What have you done?" the old man shouted. "Do you know what this is doing to our reputation? Fix this now." But it was too late to fix anything. By noon, the health department showed up for a routine inspection that everyone knew was not routine. They found violations that had been overlooked before: the expired milk in the walk-in cooler, the mouse droppings behind the stove that Carlos had reported months ago, but Marcus had ignored, the broken refrigerator that was not keeping food at safe temperatures. They issued fines totaling $30,000 and gave the restaurant 72 hours to fix everything or be shut down. The lunch rush that day was not a rush at all. Only 3 tables were occupied, and those customers looked uncomfortable, probably tourists who had not seen the video yet. The waitstaff stood around with nothing to do. Tips were non-existent. By 2 o'clock, Marcus had to send half the staff home. "This will blow over," he told them, but even he did not believe it. The hostess, who had first ignored Maya, quit that afternoon. "I cannot work here anymore," she said, leaving her name tag on the counter. Meanwhile, Maya was meeting with a lawyer that the NAACP had connected her with. Patricia Williams was a civil rights attorney who had been fighting these battles for 20 years. "You have a clear case for discrimination," Patricia said, "but I want you to know, these cases can be hard on you personally. Are you prepared for that?" Maya thought about all the people who had messaged her, thanking her for standing up. "Yes," she said firmly. "This is bigger than just me now." That evening, Maya did something that surprised everyone. Instead of hiding or giving angry interviews, she went to the Helping Hands community kitchen and started serving food to the homeless. When reporters found her there, she was ladling soup with a smile. "This is what service looks like," she said simply. "Everyone deserves to eat with dignity." The contrast between her actions and the restaurants could not have been clearer. The video of her serving others with kindness went viral, too. Local businesses started taking stands. The bakery that supplied the Golden Forks bread canceled their contract. The local farm that provided vegetables announced they would no longer deliver there. The wine distributor pulled out. Even the laundry service that cleaned their tablecloths released a statement saying they could not support discrimination. Marcus Webb watched his restaurant being isolated like an island that no one wanted to visit. A week later, more staff quit. Carlos the chef was first, taking his whole kitchen team with him. They found jobs immediately at other restaurants that wanted to show they stood against racism. Jerome the security guard quit too, saying he could not look his daughter in the eyes while working there. The other security guard followed, then the bartender, then 3 waitresses. Marcus was left trying to run a restaurant with a skeleton crew of people who either agreed with him or were too desperate to quit. Maya organized a peaceful march that Saturday. She did not want violence or property damage. She wanted dignity and change. 1,000 people showed up. They marched past the Golden Fork in silence, holding candles and signs with simple messages. "We are all human," and "Respect is not optional." Maya walked at the front, wearing the same black dress she had worn that night. Her pearl necklace caught the light from the candles. She looked like strength itself. Inside the restaurant, Marcus watched from behind the curtains. His dining room had only 1 table occupied, an elderly couple who probably could not read the news on their phones. He had tried everything. A half-hearted apology that no one believed. A promise to do better that rang hollow. An offer to donate to charity that was rejected by every charity he called. Nothing worked. The restaurant was hemorrhaging money. $3,000 a day in losses. The owner was threatening to fire him and sue him for damages. The second week brought more problems. The few remaining staff were making mistakes from stress and overwork. Orders were wrong. Food was cold. The 1-star reviews were piling up even from the few customers who did come. Someone spray-painted "racist" on the back door, and although Marcus painted over it, it kept reappearing. He hired security to watch the building at night, but that was just another expense he could not afford. Maya, meanwhile, was turning her pain into purpose. She started a foundation called Dignity for All that would help train restaurants and businesses on inclusion and respect. Money poured in from donations. Celebrities shared her story. A famous chef offered to help her open her own restaurant if she wanted. But Maya was not interested in revenge or competition. She wanted change. Real, lasting change that would make sure no one else faced what she had faced. 3 weeks after the incident, the Golden Fork faced a discrimination lawsuit not just from Maya, but from 3 former employees who came forward with their own stories. Jerome, the security guard, revealed that he had been paid less than his white colleague for the same work. A former waitress said she had been told to serve white customers first. A dishwasher said he had heard Marcus use racial slurs in the kitchen. The evidence was piling up like snow in a blizzard. Marcus Webb finally broke. He resigned as manager, releasing a statement that blamed media pressure and cancel culture, but never truly apologized. He left town the next day, his reputation destroyed, his career in restaurants over. But the damage to the Golden Fork was already fatal. The owner tried to hire a new manager, even a black woman, to show they had changed. But she took one look at the books and the reputation and declined the job. The final week of the month was like watching a dying animal take its last breaths. The restaurant opened only for dinner, then only 3 days a week, then not at all. The sign on the door said, "Temporarily closed for renovations." But everyone knew the truth. The suppliers were demanding payment for past bills. The landlord wanted 3 months of back rent. The health department fines were still unpaid. The lawsuits were moving forward. There was no money left. Maya was at the hospital, working her shift as head nurse when she got the call from her lawyer. "They are closing permanently," Patricia said. "The announcement will come tomorrow, but I wanted you to know first." Maya felt no joy in this news. She had never wanted the restaurant to close. She had wanted it to change. She had wanted them to see her as human. But sometimes when people refuse to change, change happens to them anyway. The next morning, exactly 1 month after Maya had been refused service, the Golden Fork announced its permanent closure. The news channels that had covered the original incident now showed footage of workers carrying out the crystal lights and white tablecloths. The piano was loaded onto a truck. The reserved signs that had been lies were thrown in the trash. By noon, there was a "For Lease" sign in the window, and metal shutters covered the doors. Maya stood across the street, not to gloat, but to reflect. David Chen was with her, taking photos for a follow-up story. "How do you feel?" he asked her. Maya was quiet for a long moment. "Sad," she finally said. "Sad that it had to come to this. All those people lost their jobs, all because one man could not see past hate. But maybe now, the next restaurant that opens here will remember that everyone deserves to eat with dignity." The story could have ended there, but life keeps moving forward. A month later, a new restaurant opened in that space. It was called Everyone's Table, and it was owned by a group of investors that included Black, White, Latino, and Asian partners. They hired Carlos as head chef. Jerome became the security supervisor. The hostess who had quit in shame came back, ready to do better. On opening night, they reserved the best table in the house for one special guest. Maya arrived wearing the same black dress and pearl necklace. This time, when she walked through the door, the entire staff applauded. The new manager, a young black woman named Angela, personally escorted her to her table. "Welcome to Everyone's Table," Angela said with tears in her eyes. "Thank you for making this possible." Maya sat down and looked at the menu. At the bottom, in small letters, it read, "We serve everyone with dignity and respect." As Maya ate her dinner that night, she thought about her grandmother again. "Baby, when they go low, you stand tall." She had stood tall, and in doing so, she had helped others stand too. The old restaurant that had refused her service was gone, closed down by its own hatred. But in its place grew something beautiful, something that fed not just bodies, but souls. Something that proved that justice does not always roar like thunder. Sometimes it whispers like wind, patient and persistent, until the walls of prejudice crumble and fall. The news ran one final story about the whole incident. They interviewed customers at Everyone's Table, a diverse crowd enjoying meals together. They interviewed the staff, proud to work at a place that valued everyone. They tried to interview Marcus Webb, but he had disappeared, moved to another state to escape his shame. And they interviewed Maya, who had become a symbol of dignity in the face of discrimination. "What would you say to other people who face discrimination?" the reporter asked her. Maya thought carefully before answering. "I would say this. Your dignity is not determined by how others treat you. It comes from inside you. Stand tall, speak truth, and remember that justice might take time, but it does come. That restaurant refused to serve me because I am black. Now it is closed down, and a better one has taken its place. That is how change happens. One person standing up, then another, until the old ways cannot stand any more." The reporter had one last question. "Do you forgive Marcus Webb?" Maya smiled sadly. "Forgiveness is not about him. It is about me not carrying his poison in my heart. I hope he learns from this. I hope he grows. But whether he does or not, I will keep working to make sure no one else faces what I faced. That is more important than holding on to anger." 6 months later, Maya's foundation had helped train over 100 restaurants in inclusive practices. She had testified before the city council about strengthening anti-discrimination laws. She had spoken at schools about standing up to injustice with dignity. The video of her being refused service had been viewed 50 million times, becoming a teaching tool about modern discrimination. And she still worked as head nurse, saving lives without asking what color they were. Marcus Webb eventually resurfaced, working at a gas station in a small town where no one knew his name. One day, a black family came in needing directions. He hesitated for a moment, old habits trying to surface. Then he remembered the metal shutters closing over the Golden Fork. He remembered the "For Lease" sign. He remembered losing everything to hate. He gave the family directions and even drew them a map. It was a small step, but it was a step away from who he had been. Everyone's table became the most popular restaurant in the city. People came not just for Carlos's amazing food, but for what the place represented. They had a wall of photos showing the diverse staff and customers. They had a small plaque by the door that read, "In memory of all the dignity denied, we promise dignity for all." And every year, on the anniversary of the incident, they held a free community dinner where everyone was welcome, no matter who they were or what they looked like. Maya attended every one of these dinners. She would wear her black dress and pearl necklace, not as a reminder of pain, but as a symbol of triumph. She would sit at different tables each year, meeting new people, hearing their stories, sharing her own. Children who had seen her video in school would come up to her with shy smiles, saying she had inspired them to stand up to bullies. Adults would thank her for making their workplaces think about inclusion. The story spread far beyond their city. Other restaurants that had discriminatory practices quietly changed their policies, afraid of becoming the next Golden Fork. Business schools taught the incident as a case study in how discrimination was not just morally wrong, but bad for business. Law schools used the legal case as an example of modern civil rights litigation, and Maya's dignified response became a model for how to face injustice with grace and strength. Years later, a documentary was made about the incident. They interviewed everyone involved except Marcus Webb, who declined to participate. They showed how one moment of discrimination had rippled out to create waves of change. They showed how the Golden Fork's closure had not been about revenge but about consequences. And they showed how Maya had turned her worst night into a catalyst for making the world a little bit better. In the documentary's most powerful moment, they showed Maya visiting a classroom of young children. A little black girl raised her hand and asked, "Were you scared that night?" Maya knelt down to the girl's level and said, "Yes, sweetie, I was scared." But being brave does not mean you are not scared. It means you do the right thing, even when you are scared. And you know what? You are brave too. Every single one of you has the power to stand up to wrong things and make them right. The documentary ended with a shot of the Golden Fork's old location, now thriving as everyone's table. The camera slowly zoomed in on the window where the "For Lease" sign had once hung. Now there was a different sign. Reservations recommended, but everyone welcome. The final words on screen were simple. Restaurant refused to serve black woman. Next month, it closed down. But from its ashes rose something better. Justice does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and sometimes that whisper changes everything. Maya never sought fame from what happened to her. She continued working as a nurse, saving lives with the same hands that had pushed open the door of the Golden Fork that rainy night. She continued running her foundation, quietly helping businesses become more inclusive. She continued living her life with the dignity that no one could take away from her. And sometimes when she passed by everyone's table, she would smile, knowing that she had helped turn a place of exclusion into a place of embrace. The pearl necklace her grandmother had given her still hung around her neck, a reminder of the wisdom passed down through generations. When they go low, you stand tall. She had stood tall that night when Marcus Webb had tried to make her small. She had stood tall when the cameras were rolling and when they were not. She had stood tall in courtrooms and classrooms, in marches and in meetings. And because she stood tall, others had found the courage to stand with her. This is the power of dignity in the face of discrimination. This is the power of truth in the face of lies. This is the power of one person refusing to accept injustice. The Golden Fork fell not because of violence or vandalism, but because hatred is bad for business and worse for the soul. It fell because people of conscience said no more. It fell because in the end, restaurants that refused to serve some of us refused to serve all of us. And it fell because Maya Thompson walked in with dignity and walked out with even more, leaving behind a mirror that showed everyone exactly what prejudice looks like and exactly why it must end. The story of the Golden Fork became a cautionary tale told in business schools and boardrooms. The story of Maya Thompson became an inspiration told in churches and community centers. The story of everyone's table became a blueprint for how to build something better from the ruins of racism. And the story of that night, when a restaurant refused to serve a black woman and closed down 1 month later, became proof that justice might be slow, but it is certain. That dignity might be challenged, but it cannot be destroyed. And that sometimes the most powerful response to hate is not hate in return, but the quiet, unstoppable force of truth.